Okay, welcome back to the Longview PD On Air podcast. I'm your host, Michaela Vaughn.
I'm Ryan Rocket.
I'm Carrie Higginbotham.
And our guest, we have Sergeant Drew Allison with us today. Drew.
Hello there.
Hello. We are talking about ALERRT. Drew, you're kind of our guy for ALERRT, so we thought it'd be good to have you on, talk about what ALERRT is, and talk about what all we're doing with it and where we want to go. So
before we jump into that, talk about you. Introduce yourself to everyone who is listening to this.
Yeah, who are you, guy?
Yeah, okay. So my name is Drew Allison, and I'm from Rock Island, Texas, located in Colorado County. It's in between Houston and San Antonio. It has a population of maybe 250 people with livestock and dogs. It was very small.
Wow.
It's twice the size of where Michaela's from.
Yep. I was hired by the Longview Police Department in 2006 and did patrol for 12 years and then promoted to sergeant in 2018.
But you did other stuff then, too.
I did. Before the department or?
No, before getting promoted to sergeant.
Yes.
What else have you done here?
Yes. I made our SWAT team in 2008, and I attended my first ALERRT training in 2007. Our chief Boone actually scheduled me to attend the ALERRT Level 1 in 2007. I attended that as a rookie cop, and it impacted me deeply, and I was like, wow, this is pretty changing stuff, and kind of left an impression on me. I started attending ALERRT training as a midnight officer just on my own time, driving to San Marcos, and just going on my own time to learn from these guys in 2000, 2009, 2010, 2011. And then I went through my first train-to-trainer to become an ALERRT certified instructor in 2012, 2013-ish. So I've been working patrol the entire time until 2022, and then I was moved over to be over school safety and run our ALERRT program.
Very cool. So your school safety stuff that you're doing right now, you're the supervisor over the SROs, our school resource officers.
Yes.
We've got how many of them?
We have 6 of them right now.
Okay.
So that's 28 schools, 4 ISDs, over 18,000 students.
Oh, my gosh.
In the city of Longview. That's not including, our 2 colleges located in our city limits.
Very cool.
We have how many school campuses in Longview?
I believe around 28.
Oh, my Lord.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a lot.
Oh, that's a whole lot.
18,000 students.
We're all about education. Smart people.
Yeah.
I like it. So since you took over the SRO program, I know with the ALERRT stuff that you do and that you're teaching across the board, I would say at our department, but you're teaching widespread to multiple agencies across the area. But one thing I've noticed is that all of our SROs are now ALERRT instructors, correct?
Yes.
Very cool. That goes a long way with the protection of the students that they're responsible for.
That's huge. And the chief, when he encouraged me to put in for this position over the SRO unit, that was a vision of his to say, hey, if we value our children and their safety and their education, then we want to also invest in our SROs. So we set out to have our school resource officers become what we call triple ALERRT certified instructors. And so they have attended all of them except for one, and one will be finished that 3rd class this month. But where they get certified as instructors in a level 1 class, an active attack integrated response class, and a first responder medical class.
How would you define what ALERRT is? What is that program?
Yeah. So ALERRT stands for Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training. It started in 2002, and the ALERRT Center, and it's in conjunction with Texas State University and in partnership with Hays County Sheriff's Office and San Marcos Police Department and Texas State University. It was started by some officers there within their SWAT team that they were looking for a better training facility, and they also set out to create a statewide standard for responding to active shooter response. This was in the wake of Columbine in 1999, and they realized if they got their eyes off themselves and they help others grow, then they would grow and become better in the process. And so they got some grant money, received some grant money from the state of Texas, and they put the show on the road, and they set out to try to have a statewide standard for active shooter response. And it continued to grow from there.
And now this is basically the nationally accepted standard as it relates to active shooter response.
Correct. When I was introduced to it in 2007, it was still in the state of Texas. When Sandy Hook happened, the tragic incident that happened in Sandy Hook in 2012, the White House turned around to the DOJ and said, what are we doing on a national level to help our state and local law enforcement respond to this? They turned around and they evaluated multiple active shooter response programs within the country. And in 2013, the DOJ actually backed ALERRT and said, hey, we are going to make you the national standard for active shooter response for law enforcement, which then breathed federal money into the program, just not state money.
So what's interesting to me is it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but ALERRT was one of the kind of wayfinders as it related to not just active shooter response, but integration with fire and EMS personnel for not just stopping the threat, but life-saving measures kind of going hand in hand and at the same time in these responses.
They were. They set out in 2000, I think around 2016, they started waking up and realizing and pushing out active attack integrated response. I went through my first, we call that the AIR course, AAIR, active attack integrated response. And that is the combination of how do we solve this problem with police, with fire, and with EMS, because we're all trained first responders and we all have our specialties. One's medical and response, one's medical and transport, one's more security. And so how do we integrate that? And one of the unique things about ALERRT, it's just not a training organization, but it's also they provide relevant research and training that saves lives. So part of the ALERRT program takes they collect data over since 2000 to 2000. I think the last update is 2023, and they're continually updating our curriculum that we teach, our tactics, our techniques, and our procedures. What do we need to focus on? What do we not need to focus on based on the data that they're collecting? And now it's just not just law enforcement, but it's fire and EMS. I think we're up to 567 attacks within the nation from 2000 to 2023 right now.
And so this has gone from their goal of a state standard to now a national standard. Mm-hmm. And now back at the state level, they've moved beyond your standard response to now it's state law, right?
Yes.
That all peace officers in the state of Texas have to have this ALERRT training in order to maintain their peace officer license.
Yeah. Every
right?
2 years, too.
Yep.
Yes. So in 2022, our Chief Boone set out he saw the value of ALERRT years ago, and he set out to want to bring ALERRT training on a continual and ongoing basis in the Northeast Texas area before Uvalde happened. And in the springtime of 2022, the tragic incident at Robb Elementary happened with Uvalde. Our governing body in 2023, August of 2023, decided, hey, we are going to require all law enforcement officers to go through 16 hours of ALERRT training, which is a 2-day class, every 2 years to maintain their commission. Well, there's over 80,000 police officers in the state of Texas to do that.
Oh, my gosh.
The great thing was we already set out with a vision and a goal to want to do this before it was state mandated because of our leadership and our leaders here to be able to see that. And they weren't focusing on today's problem; they were focusing on tomorrow's problem, which is great for vision.
Forward thinking, yeah.
Yes, and so we were already teaching one ALERRT class every month and being mentored by ALERRT instructors. So our instructors were teaching it, our local Longview Police Department instructors, and ALERRT instructors were coming down and they were mentoring us. So as we taught, they were continually working with us, checking off and mentoring us through that process from February of 23 through August of 23. Unbeknownst to us that this was going to become state mandated. Mm-hmm. So once this became state mandated in August of 2023, we made strategic partners with Smith County Sheriff's Office, Gregg County Sheriff's Office, Tyler Police Department, and from the
Longview Fire was a
Yep.
player on that too.
and Longview Fire was a huge. They've always had buy-in with us on that, and so that's five agencies. Between those 5 agencies, we have over 800 first responders to be able to provide that. So then they started. We went from 1 class a month to a minimum of 2 classes a month in August of 23 to start doing that and providing that training to Northeast Texas.
So when we say active shooter, I think that a lot of people think that this is just a school thing.
Yes.
But what are we talking about when we say active shooter event? What does that mean?
Yep. And a lot of people also get wrapped around a gun thing. It doesn't have to involve a gun. It can involve a vehicle. It can involve any means, whether that's a bat, whether that's a knife, where an individual's, their goal is to set out and hurt as many people as possible until they're stopped, or to set out and do that and then escape and try to leave the area. It's their goal is mass homicide, and it isn't focused just on a school. A lot of people, that's our first mindset or our first thought when we think of active shooter. We think of the geographical location happening at schools, and that's really out of the 567 attacks, 14% of them take place at places of education. The majority of places where that takes place is at places of commerce and business.
Yeah, I mean, just right off the bat, most people are going to be very familiar with like San Bernardino. What was it? The theater in Aurora. Those were big ones.
The shopping center here in Texas, in Allen, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, where we go, where our loved ones, where we're at every day of our lives, where we have family members every day of our lives. That's our biggest target area.
So when we say ALERRT, what are the goals of ALERRT, right?
So the mission of ALERRT is to provide the best research-based active shooter response training in the nation. Research-based. That's their mission. When we break it down to actually a critical response, they have three overarching goals: is to stop the killing immediately, as soon as possible. We have to stop that, and then once we stop the killing, we want to stop the dying, and that's our medical training or medical adjuncts or tools that we bring in to help those wounded. And then the third one is to rapid casualty evacuation care, to get those wounded to a higher level of medical care.
And it's funny because it's almost like it goes down the line from the first one is law enforcement, the second one is law enforcement and our firefighters, EMS, and then the third one is pretty much firefighters and EMS to the hospital side.
Correct.
Yep, and that's why that integration part is such a critical function of what ALERRT brings to us.
Yes, that's huge. That's huge.
Now, we talked about the partnerships that we have when we started this between us and our surrounding East Texas agencies, right? Recently, we had a representative from ALERRT come down, and we entered into an agreement with them, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So Chris Ernest, he's our regional manager. ALERRT is they span across the United States, but Texas is so big, and ALERRT they have to break up Texas into regions, just like DPS does. And so we have a regional manager that is a full-time employee of ALERRT, and they came down and we entered into signed an MOU, memorandum of understanding, where we became a Northeast Texas regional provider for ALERRT because of the vision that we've cast, because of the dedication and the classes that we have put on, from trainers to helping agencies around us grow and provide this training.
Gotcha. So in that training that we've provided, how many classes, if you have a rough number, have we offered?
I'm in the class 80s numbers. Now this is in partnership with Smith County, Tyler Police Department, Gregg County, and Longview Fire as well. But we're in the class 80s. We've trained well over 1,500 first responders by now doing this. That's police, fire, and EMS, and active attack integrated response, level 1 first responder medical, solo officer rapid deployment, or ERACE, exterior response to active shooter events. So five classes we've hit on so far.
So we were talking about Longview's kind of goal and vision as it relates to the part we play in ALERRT. How many other places are there that have the kind of momentum, if you will, that we have with ALERRT and the training that we're doing?
That's a great question, and I see it in my kind of 3-foot world of what we're seeing. I don't have a glimpse of what El Paso's doing or what Fort Worth is doing. What I do know, a lot of your larger agencies, such as Houston, Austin, San Antonio, well, they're such a large department. They have to focus on just their people.
Yeah, I mean, in some of those, you're talking 3 to 5, 6,000 officers alone.
You're exactly right. So they will host trainers where they will have their people come in and be certified as instructors. An ALERRT staff will come in and train them, and then they will open those trainers to outside agencies. But the majority of their indirect classes, which is their 2-day operator classes, which is what is being pushed out across the nation, is usually just their departments. And one of the unique things that we created a vision was to partner up and provide that training to be able to all surrounding Northeast Texas region, agencies to be able to do that, where if it's get our eyes off ourselves and help others grow, we become better in that process. You don't have to be large to be influential.
One of the things that I do like about ALERRT is that we host the training and give the training for free, and the other ALERRT programs do the same. They're not charging for it. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you're offering ALERRT training, you can't charge for it.
Correct. So, and how that works for those, there's money set aside for what we call indirect classes, and to where ALERRT provides the simunitions, the blanks, any of the expendables. The manuals now are a digital download where the officers can do that. So now we're not shipping manuals back and forth. Mm-hmm. ALERRT trains our instructors. We call them certified instructors. And then we host the class for the surrounding agencies. And those instructors are teaching ALERRT on police department time. So when I'm teaching ALERRT on an indirect class, I'm getting paid by the Longview Police Department to provide that training. And the other instructors are. We benefit from it because it helps our officers and they get certified as instructors. The other way that will work is if it's a direct class where they will use grant money to be able to ship kits out to make the class happen and then pay.
What do you mean kits?
So to have a class, let's say teach a level 1 class, it's called ALERRT level 1. It focuses strictly on law enforcement. There's usually anywhere between 8 and 9
giant crates.
Yes, that roll out from
teaching aids.
Yep, ammunition guns, tourniquets, medical supplies, safety masks, everything like that, to be able to make this class a go. And then they'll send out 4 instructors that are usually they're adjunct instructors. They're usually officers or subject matter experts in their field that are currently working, and they take time off their contract through ALERRT, and they come in and they teach that class to be able to do that. And even those classes are free. What I really like about our indirect classes is we're using our instructors to do it, and it's bringing a culture change across law enforcement to be able to do this and how it becomes a part of our culture. When before Uvalde happened, a lot of the classes that were taught were direct classes. They were by officers that were contract basis through ALERRT that did this. And so departments would, hey, let's schedule some ALERRT classes. They would apply for the classes. The kits would be shipped in. The instructors would be shipped in. And you'd usually see anywhere between 40 and 60% of your department trained up for active shooter response. And most agencies would focus on that every 4 to 5 years. But it wasn't a culture change. Mm-hmm. And so now what we're doing is we're developing those subject matter experts within our departments. And because we're now teaching that on a continual and ongoing basis, it's not something that we're doing every 4 to 5 years. We realize if we want to get good at this, if we really show a passion for this, because this is everybody we train now, my wife and kids are safer as they drive throughout Northeast Texas. Yeah. Because now we're touching all walks of life in law enforcement. And so we've seen that. We've seen that across the board with our patrol, from our detectives, whether you're a 30-year veteran or whether you just got out of field training officer program and you're a rookie. The more we can touch them with this training, because it's designed for, if you carry a gun and badge, this is within your 3-foot world and your responsibility now. It's not a SWAT thing.
What I like is I've been through a number of alert classes too, with you, taught by you, all that kind of good stuff. These are alert classes for people who have an outside perspective. They don't know what it looks like. This isn't a sit in a chair and we talk to you for 2 days. I think that the amount of time you spend in a chair is pretty darn slim because you're up, you're moving, you're going through these things. There's scenarios, roles that you're learning, critical functions, critical tasks, principles to apply. This is not a sit back, put your feet up, and take notes kind of class. What does the training look like?
Yes, so that's a great question. So just in our level 1,
I ask a lot of those.
Yeah,
Typically.
in our level 1 class, over 16 hours, it's broken into 9 different modules that we focus on, and everything from arriving to the scene to how do we approach a crisis site. The data is showing us now where we have a 1 in 6 chance as a law enforcement officer when we show up to these that we're going to be either shot or killed, and to how do we survive that. From how do we show up on a scene? How do we take command? How do we build that out? How do we breach into a crisis site? How do we find out if this is an exigent response or tactical response? And then how do we do that if we're by ourselves to all the way up into a 4 or 5 man team? How do we stop the killing? How do we manage the chaos inside when we do that? And how do we bring other follow-on officers into that crisis site? How do we transfer command from inside the crisis site to outside the crisis site and take command and then feed resources to be able to save those lives?
Yeah.
And so those are taught through 9 different modules. And then on day 2, we work through scenarios. We work through actually force-on-force scenarios where we have simunition guns.
What is that?
And so simunition gun, it's actually a firearm that shoots a projectile at you around 400 feet per second. And when it hits you, it stings, it hurts, it leaves a mark. And it's actually a dyed soap. So we're actually cleaning you as we shoot you, and vice versa. And it activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is fear of pain, bodily injury, or death. Kind of hits that fight or flight syndrome with people. And so we want to be able to, what we call, test those skills that we gave them on day 1 and we taught them on day 1.
Yeah, pressure check it.
You're exactly right. Yeah, pressure checks it. Just like when you're scrimmaging football, everything's fine when you don't have a team that actually hits hard. But then when you have a team that actually hits hard that you're going against and actually is going to try to prevent you from accomplishing your goal.
Game looks a little different.
It looks a little different. Yeah, it's like the plan's fine until you get punched in the face.
Right.
And so that's what that simunition does. And so we do that with our day 2 of level 1 training. And
so to reverse a little bit, you said that y'all so far we've helped train how many people just in this area?
Right now, I think the numbers are right around over 50 agencies and over 1,500 first responders.
50 agencies.
And that's between our partnership with those 4 other critical agencies as well.
The importance of having a training hub in our area, it can't be overstated.
Most definitely. And that's the beauty of the thing. To be able to put one of these classes on and teach it, we use anywhere between 4 and 7 instructors for one class.
Why is that?
Just because of, one, the content that we teach, and when we run our force-on-force lanes. So a single stack class is roughly 15 students, a double stack class and go up to 30 students. That's 4 instructors. If I'm going to run a triple stack class, I'll usually use 6 to 7 instructors because I'm running 45 students or more.
And in each one of these classes, it's broken down into modules where somebody might have a specific like niche area that they're specialized in or they're good at teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably adds to the complication of getting all these instructors lined out to orchestrate and organize these classes.
It does, and doing that, and so you'll break your modules down, assign them to your certified instructors, and they'll make sure they're squared away on that, and then that instructor will teach that module to the class, and then they break out with the other instructors, and then they go do what they were just taught.
So we talked about level 1. We talked about the active attack and integrated response. You had mentioned some other classes. What are those? What are those classes, and what are they geared towards?
Yep. So there's another core class that ALERRT teaches called First Responder Medical, FRM. We're doing the trainer in a couple weeks here. We're hosting that here. And that focuses on direct threat care medical, which is tourniquet application, pressure points, and recovery position. How do we keep the blood in their body, and how do we keep their airway open until we get them to a higher level of care, and casualty management as far as how do we move them. And then it also covers indirect threat care, which is where we have kind of a warm zone where we can get into wound packing and more in depth in medical. And then it also covers more in depth of how do we manage larger casualty collection points, and how do we take those wounded if we don't have an ambulance. How do we really work those skills in the backseat of a patrol car or a backseat of a vehicle while maybe a police officer is driving and have another police officer in the back keeping that patient alive or that victim alive until we can get them to a higher level of care. So that's First Responder Medical. It's a great class, highly needed in this area, because sometimes when help's minutes away, but seconds count. Seconds count. We can bleed out from a major bleeder within 120 seconds.
And I remember you had talked about one of the early on classes I had attended in ALERRT. We're talking years ago, that there was data that ALERRT had found that talked about the importance of not just, we can't afford to just put them in a car and drive them to the hospital. We need to treat them right here. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So one of the unique things that ALERRT does is collect that data from those 567 attacks that's taken place from 2000 to 2023. And they work with an organization called TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. And so they look at the wounds, they look at the type of trauma that we're seeing at these attacks. They look at what kind of medical intervention they need, and then they turn around and they realize we need to give cops this medical training because we're going into the point of where the trauma's happening and we're stopping that killing. But then right away, once we stop the killing, we need to shift gears into stopping the dying, and that's medical. It may take me, in Longview, we're blessed because of the resources we have with our fire department and our EMS department wear the same hat. Mm-hmm. So they're paramedics, whether they ride on the fire trucks or whether they ride on the ambulances. But it may take me 4 or 5 minutes to be able to get them into the crisis site. Well, that 4 or 5 minutes, the medical training that we can provide with our first responder officers that carry guns can save lives, and most likely will save lives.
Yep.
I think a cool thing about the first responder medical class specifically is that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is geared towards these mass casualty incidents. But these are skills that you learn in that class that can carry over to multiple aspects of the job that we do.
It could be
whether
just a simple car wreck.
Right, a car wreck, and you've got somebody who has a severed artery, or they're bleeding uncontrollably, and now we have officers who get there and have the tools on their person and the means of tourniquet or compression bandages or whatever it may be that they need to use to treat, and they're learning the skills in these classes to help for these mass casualty events, but they can also apply those skills to your one-offs that you run across on a more routine basis. I'll say just last month, one of our officers here benefited in a huge way from the application of tourniquets. We had an officer that was shot during an incident while he was trying to arrest somebody. And his fellow officers who were there with him at the time were able to recognize the fact that he has heavy bleeding and utilize the tourniquets and the training that they've been provided through the resources that we have here at this department to apply life-saving measures to one of their fellow officers. And it's made a world of difference. The work that they did that night specifically was second to none. And the application of those tourniquets on our officer here truly saved his life. And it's incredible stuff that they're learning in these classes. And that is a very extreme example that I just gave.
But even to your point, day to day, it was 15 years ago that I remember the first time that me and you put a tourniquet on a guy who had severed his artery in his arm. Mm-hmm. And we got to the hospital and the doctors were like, "Where did y'all get this?" oh, well, they issue them to us at the PD.
Yep.
And they were like, well, this guy can thank you for being alive because without this tourniquet, and this was before either of us had gone to ALERRT training.
Right.
We just knew like, well, that's bleeding. We should probably do something about that.
Find a way to stop it.
And I mean, that's 15 years is not that long of a time.
Right.
And look at where we're at now.
Yeah.
Like, we've equipped because of the training that you, Drew, and our administration here, thanks to the chief, have brought to us in the worst situation for certainly for our guys on the street who are working with their friends. They were able to get a calm head about them and do what needed to be done to save not just the regular people on the street like they're doing all the time with these tourniquets now, but now even one of their own. So
yes, on average, I think we average anywhere between 10 and 12 tourniquet deployments a year. That either whether vehicle crashes, stabbing, shootings, because we're driving code 3 there to these crisis sites.
Yeah.
And we're one of the first ones there. And so once they realize, hey, they have security, they can automatically stop the bleeding. And so it's been great.
yeah, it has.
I was teaching our pre-commissioning class, the people we had that just graduated the academy. We just swore them in earlier this week. This morning I was teaching a class to them. And we were talking about different incidents that we have had here within our police department. And we're debriefing multiple different things that have happened. And one thing that I really stress is that no matter how good or how bad something is, if you don't take the time to break it down
Yep.
and learn from what was great, what was not so great, what could definitely be done better, right? Then we're doing everybody a disservice. Because if you can't learn from past things that you have been involved in or that you've seen or that you've heard about, right, then there's no point in even trying to correct something or trying to create something if you don't know what the potential downfalls are of it. And the ALERRT program has shown over and over again that they are looking so in depth at every major incident that happens.
Yeah, all the facets.
Yep, and just
individual
picking
aspects,
apart
yep.
down to the smallest little aspect of it.
Like where to park your car, where to stop driving your car.
Yeah, where to stop driving, right? It's I don't know, the something about the fact that they spend so much time and effort and energy on actually looking into every minor caveat of all of these things that have taken place so they can make it better next time. And then when the next time happens, they're going to break that one down and find out what else can be improved on. And it's a continual cycle. You were talking about, Drew, earlier at the beginning of this, that they keep updating their curriculum. And to me, that's huge because once you stop updating something, you're setting everyone else in the future up for failure.
We've drawn a line in the sand to say relevance stops here at
Right.
that point.
Right.
Yep.
And it's our job in this profession to be the protectors. You know, and if we're not prepared to protect, then we're failing at our job.
Perpetual students of this profession.
Yes, sir.
And it's funny because your humility at this point is your Achilles heel. I think that we as an agency have been very fortunate to have you who, at the beginning of the podcast, you kind of glazed over it pretty quick, but you said that you were going in your off time. And by off time, I think it's important to mention you were driving to San Marcos to take law enforcement classes specifically related to active shooter response so that you could come back when you were at work and be better at it and bring it to us.
Well, a lot of that can be credited to my wife, Bree. She's put up with me this whole time. And many times she says, why can't you just be a regular cop and just go to work and just check out, and, you know, and answer your calls and go home? And but it goes back to just wanting to, if you want to be a good master of your craft, then you just continually pursue excellence and finding those failure points.
That's what a professional is.
And kind of creates that, just that environment of safety to fail and then come back and get better and better and better. And one of the things that ALERRT really offered me from the get-go, from 2007 on, is it introduced me to mentors, to cops that were outside of Northeast Texas, to guys that were with Austin Police Department, Houston Police Department, San Antonio Police, all over the state of Texas at that time, and to build relationships with them and to start being mentored by them as a young rookie cop, and then as an instructor. It's just another layer of learning those skills. And Steve Jones came in and started mentoring me in 2014 in level 1, and he was an Austin cop that was served on their SWAT team, and then he became a detective. But he continued. He was one of the OG plank owners of ALERRT when it started in 2002, and now he's our regional director over all the state of Texas for ALERRT. He retired from Austin Police Department, but it's just one of those things of constantly look at other people and say, I want to be like that. I want to strive to learn and be better. And ALERRT's offered that to a lot of cops, just not me.
Yeah, this is not always easy either, because I know that you spend a lot of time, even still today, much to my chagrin and Chief Rocket's chagrin. We're like, Drew, take a day off.
Yes. Yes. So,
But again, a husband got to go home to a wife. A father got to go home to a child.
a lot of that now is since 2022, having great leaders. I've been to this department since 2006, and not saying we didn't have great leaders before then, because we did, but now I've never been at a pivotal point within our department to be able to see the leadership and the culture change since 22, to where they see good people, they train good people, and they trust good people, and they give us our right and left boundaries, and they say swing for the fences. And Chief Boone's been that for me. He really has, to be able to say, hey, you just go pursue this with passion, and he's allowed me to do that. And that's where we just continually we just keep pushing it, and it's been great.
Empowering your people that you lead is an important facet of leadership.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Yep.
Every class I'm at, I'm able to stand and talk about my chief and the type of leadership and culture changes that he's provided at our department. He manages his stuff. If there's issues, he comes in, and there's most definitely that accountability. But at the same time, to take ownership of saying, this is my department. This is my city. And I can tell you, after doing this for 19 years this summer, if I could go anywhere, have any job within the state of Texas or within the country for any law enforcement agency, I would literally choose Longview Police Department because of the culture and the leadership that I have, that I get to come to work every day. Every week I'm trying to cram 70 hours of work into 40-hour work weeks because I don't have enough time. But I'm still like, this is phenomenal leadership. You've been a huge part of that, Deputy Chief Rocket, of just saying,
Because you're 6'6".
of not saying no, but saying, why can't we say yes? And not being afraid to ask, not being afraid to say, hey, the worst they can say is no, or develop that situation, and to be able to keep pushing the boundaries of developing people, developing leaders. And it's huge. And then taking that culture and sharing it and letting officers, 2 or 3 year officers, see that. Because one of the great things about ALERRT when we teach these skills, it's really not about the weapons handling or the medical training, or it's really about the leadership of developing good leaders in times of crisis to be able to do the right things for the right reasons at the right time. And that's what ALERRT's really taught me more than anything out of all of those, is just leadership. It takes leadership to be able to say, that person's bleeding out, where are the paramedics? But I'm going to stop that bleeding right now and think about how can I get this person to a higher level of care. And just developing those leaders, just not within our department, but also developing those leaders in other agencies around us.
Yes. I don't even know what to say after that.
That's a
Yeah.
Mic drop moment.
Yeah.
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 Don't drop the mic. They're expensive.
So that's another aspect that I'm really excited about that we get to participate in with the Longview Police Department, is just not giving the officers in Northeast Texas the physical skills and the knowledge on how to be able to make their communities safer wherever they go because of now the tools that they carry with them, the knowledge that they have, but also developing that next culture of leadership that we look at, of those officers are eventually going to be the next lieutenants. Those officers are going to be the next chiefs.
Or
And
those
wherever they
officers
go.
might be the ones who come to your wife, your mother, your father's 911 call.
That's huge. That's one of the challenges that we that I try to give to the officers when we train them, whether they're fire EMS or law enforcement, is what is your expectation of how good do you want that first responder to be when it's your loved one? And we have them open their phones and say, find the photo of those people that you care about the most. And we all open up our phones and they show me their pictures and I show them my picture of my family. What is my expectation of those first responders if my loved ones are there bleeding out? And of how good do I want them to be at their job of stopping the killing, stopping the dying, and immediate casualty evacuation care? Just not in their skills, but their leadership to already be ahead of those things are on a subconscious level because we're already thinking about what hospital they're going to because everything before then is already taken care of and we're solving those problems.
Yep.
It's leadership. It really is.
So we've talked about where we came from, where we are in our short-term goals. What are we looking at? Kind of, where does this go from here? How do we make this better?
Can I talk about big vision here?
Let's talk big picture. We're talking long-term plans.
Yeah.
Where would you like to see this be?
Yes.
So
in a perfect world.
So not where I would like to see it be, but where it's going to be.
Okay.
Go with that.
I think a lot of people look at me as Noah, saying the flood is coming, and I'm over here trying to build this ark, and they're just kind of like going back and forth, answering their calls. That guy's kind of crazy. Right? I'm over here just building this boat in the middle of this field. We set out with a goal to become the Northeast Texas Regional Training Hub for ALERRT. We set out with a goal to make strategic partners of other agencies to get buy-in and use just not the Longview Police Department instructors, but also to create the same camaraderie with Tyler Police Department, Smith County Sheriff's Office, Gray County Sheriff's Office, Longview Fire Department. And people said it wouldn't happen, and it's happening. And so where they have that same culture, that same desire to want to help agencies and train other agencies around that. One of the biggest things, the first hurdle that we were having was we need kits. We need our own kits to be able to do this, so we're not competing when we host these classes, because when we were hosting these classes before, we were using our instructors to teach it, and we were asking ALERRT permission if these dates fit in to where they can ship us the materials and the kits to be able to do that.
Because without these kits, there is no class. Am I right?
Correct. You need the material to be able to teach that. So last year, I believe it was last year, Chief Boone and Sheriff Sorigliano with Gray County bought us our level 1 kit to where they went half and half between Longview Police Department and Gray County to be able to do that. That wasn't cheap. It was like $51,000 or $52,000 for just one kit to teach this class. And so we paid for half of it. They paid for half of it to where we have our own kit. We don't need to ask permission to teach level 1. Tyler Police Department has their level 1 kit. Smith County got their own level 1 kit to be able to do that. So we can do that. And ALERRT sent us expendables. We just applied for a grant for the Active Attack Integrated Response Kit, and we're waiting to hear back on that. But the goal is if ALERRT offers 6 core classes long term, we want to have 6 individual kits, 1 kit for each class that we teach. So we're not reliant on are these kits available to make this training happen, and that's happening. That's not a matter of if, but it's just a matter of when. Because now, since TCOL, which is our Texas governing body that gives us our what's required of law enforcement officers in the state of Texas, has made this mandated. This training is not going away. So our goal is to get our 6 kits contained to where we can teach these classes, and we're in possession of them, and we provide instructors. Our next goal, too, is where does this training take place? A lot of times right now, the training takes place in abandoned buildings, abandoned schools, or schools that maybe class is not in the summertime. We've made a partnership with Hallsville ISD where they're letting us use one of their schools that they're not using currently right now, which has helped us out a lot. But the right answer, instead of training in buildings that you have to deal with mold, you have to deal with
yes.
Is there working bathrooms? Is there running water?
Let me paint the picture for some of our listeners. Right now, when you say abandoned schools, I think that the picture people might get in their head is like last week we shut the doors. That is not the case,
right?
Because some of these facilities that we're having to use have been shut down for, well, as long as some people have been alive. I I mean, this would be the equivalent of teaching a mechanic how to work on a car in the absence of a car to work on.
And it goes back to kind of that quote that kind of Teddy Roosevelt said, "Do the best what you got where you're at," and that kind of takes excuses away. So we have to make this training. So we've been training in vacant buildings. We trained in a vacant school in Glaywater for almost 2 years straight, without air conditioning, without heating,
Without bathrooms.
We had to go across the street to use bathrooms. And so our long-term goal is we need a training facility to make this happen. If you think about, do we really value our citizens' safety? Do we really value to stop in progress crimes? Then that's where ALERRT comes in. And so we need a facility to make this happen. Long-term goal is we want to regionally have a facility that focuses on and provides that training, that facility, whether that's a simunitions house where we can do that force-on-force training. Some of the ALERRT courses require breaching, so we need a range to be able to put breaching doors there and to be able to breach into doors. And we need ranges to be able to shoot rifles and pistols at, to be able to do that and provide that regionally. The same thing happened that's how ALERRT started, was there were cops with San Marcos PD and Hays County, and they really needed a better facility for their SWAT team. And they realized, they got together with some people at Texas State University, and they said, if they get their eyes off themselves and help others grow, then those resources will be provided for you if you work at it. And eventually that's how they started the ALERRT Center.
That's a lot to ask for, all the things you just named out, right? But to your point, when you said pull up the phone and show me the picture of your loved one, who doesn't have that photo?
Right.
Yeah. And that's critical. This isn't a short-term process, or this isn't a Band-Aid that we're going to do. I want to think about, what kind of department do I want my kids to walk into if they're going to be a police officer or a fireman or an EMS, and what kind of level of training and long-term goals to where we have that facility to where we're doing that. And that prevents us now having to send officers off to other places to get training, to where they're having to pay per diem and pay hotel and be away from their families. And a lot of times that training gets denied just because of budgets and stuff, where if we have that facility here, we can offer those classes here in Northeast Texas and provide that training.
And again, to your point, not just to us, to everyone around us.
Fire, EMS, any critical response class, law enforcement, to where we can do that.
Drew,
thank you for being on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, bud.
Lots of great information.
Thanks for accepting the calling to perfecting your craft. And we have certainly all profited from it.
We have.
Yes.
Well, I stand on the shoulder of the men who have believed in me. That's you guys. That's Chief Boone. That's Steve Jones with ALERRT. Those guys have mentored me, and I continue. Just my goal when I look at new officers and these officers is I want my ceiling to be their floor. And I want to pour into them. And when you do that, you come home and you're exhausted after a 12 or 13-hour day, but you're satisfied. You really are. You're just you're completely spent, but it's in a worthy cause.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Rock and roll. What do you got for announcements for us, Michaela?
So we've got a couple of upcoming opportunities for our listeners to go talk to our recruiters if they want to job with us.
Well, tell us about those.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got the City of Longview Job Fair on Thursday, April 17th, and that's from 3 to 7 p.m. Our recruiters, they're going to have info on if you want to be a police officer or if you want to serve in the dispatch area. So if you have questions on any of that, you can go talk to our recruiters. Also, Wednesday, April 30th in Bossier City at the Bossier City Civic Center, KSLA Employment Expo is going on from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and we will have recruiters there as well. So if you have questions, if you anything about wanting to get the process rolling, go talk to our recruiters. They would love to see you and answer any questions you have. And then there's a community volunteer fair on April 22nd at the Longview Exhibit Center as well, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we will have info about our COP stuff. So if you're interested in that or want to serve and volunteer anywhere else in the community, stop by and talk to people.
Heck yeah.
And I'll close this out. So thanks so much for listening. We will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.